everyone. So after months of procrastinating, a bunch of you telling me I'm an idiot if I don't do it, I finally have a YouTube channel for Project Trash Panda. Not really sure where we're gonna go with it, but I figure first video we'll kind of do an overview of everything I've done to it. I'll go into some detail on how I did things. Kind of go over the questions I get a lot about it and kind of where I got some things. Uh, Other than that, moving forward after this one, I figure just kind of show you how I do things. Really haven't been trained on anything, kind of more YouTube knowledge and try one thing. If it doesn't work, try it a different way until it does work. Um, but yeah, basically, we'll just kind of start at the front, move our way back. Like I said, I'll go through everything in some detail and see how this YouTube journey goes. Okay, so we'll start with the question I get asked most, especially by the S10 guys, is where I got the front bumper from. The front bumper is just a Street Scenes SS bumper cover. Now, I haven't dealt with any of the other brands, but from everything I've seen and heard from other people that have like Duraflex, or I think there's one or two other kind of knockoff eBay or Amazon ones now, but the Street Scene fits the best. Kind of gives the SS, like the true SS look from Silverados or the Trailblazers, where the middle opening doesn't look out of place per se that some of the Duraflex ones do. But basically, we'll take a look here at my kid's truck. Basically, you just take the bottom plastic off and the rubber kind of bump guard here off of the actual metal part of the bumper, and then the cover just slides right over it, and it uses the same mounting points that you would for the bumper itself. So it still has like structural behind it, but just the fiberglass or whatever material it's made out of over it. Besides that, I added some, I guess I just call them like speed holes or whatever, and then the armor or brush guard that I put on here, I get a lot of questions about too. And this is just plumber's tubing from like Menards or your local hardware store. Uh, it's got no structural benefit. So a lot of guys will ask, oh, I can build a roll cage out of that. No. Do not use this for anything that you need to trust your life with. This is strictly just for aesthetics and the look to kind of give that almost exoskeleton feel to it. And that's the same thing I did on the side skirts, but we'll kind of go over that as we move down the truck. Other than that, we have some old school APC clear turn signals. We have a Street Trends billet grill insert, just fairly easy to put in. Just got to kind of notch out the frame or the grill a little bit after you cut out the stock mesh. And then I basically just used rivets to then rivet it into the grill itself. All right, moving on down the side of the truck, we have the fender flares or wide body, whatever you want to classify it as. I'm going to call it a wide body, seeing we're going to finish off with the bed sides yet. So that will be the next couple videos I do. But I will go into more detail on how I did that. But I got the idea from a page called Stealth Built, which I'll link in the description. And he made it look real simple just by using some cardboard, wooden dowel. I ended up using some like thick gauge wire or thin metal rod, whatever you want to call it, to kind of get my rounded shape and like the curves here. And then I just covered it with some packing tape, which the packing tape kind of acts as a releasing agent because the resin won't stick to the packing tape. So compared to what Stealth Built did, mine was kind of crude and not as good looking as his, but for the first attempt and a little extra work on the back end with sanding and forming, I think they turned out pretty good. Uh, Other than that, like I said, I'll kind of go over more detail in the next couple videos on the process that I did with these when we do the bedsides. From there, like I mentioned, with the front, I use basically the same plumber's tubing for my side skirts, rock slides, wide body, whatever you really want to call it. And then I just filled in the gaps with some sheet metal I'd laying around. For future projects, we are going to make this scoop back here actually functional on both sides. So I plan on putting an oil and trans cooler to actually kind of give more of that race look to it. Uh, for the doors here, everyone always asks what mirrors these are from. These are just some cheap motorcycle mirrors from Amazon. Can't see anything out of them really, but they look a lot better than the Dumbo mirrors. And going on with the door, this one is Suicide, which this is one of the only things that's left from when I first got the truck about 4 years ago. And everyone asks how it was done. I didn't install it, but I've heard that when they have the two hinges like this, that they can be kind of a pain in the butt to get everything to align where the door closes nice and smooth. But luckily for me, it was done previously by a reputable shop down south, and she still closes like it was stock going the other way. The only other thing I'll mention about the doors is I get a lot of questions about this knob, and this is just kind of like a safety pin that comes out and then goes into the A pillar, kind of as like a little safety measure, just in case one, either the bear claw disengages or you accidentally hit the button to open your door so your door doesn't just fly backwards and rip off the truck. So anyone that's thinking about doing suicide doors, I would highly suggest doing that just as an extra safety feature and something where it's not in the back of your mind that my door is going to fly off randomly. Just kind of peace of mind per se. All right, moving right along here. Up top, this is just a roof rack from an old Jimmy I had. Basically, I just spun it around because I felt the back kind of fits more with the curvature of the front of the roof here. And then basically, I just trimmed the middle section down to fit the length I needed. From there, we got the crazy, I just call cab duckbill spoiler. Mounted on there, we have fire extinguisher, which is always a good idea to carry anytime you do anything aftermarket to your vehicle where you're touching wires, adding things. Even if you are a professional and you know what you're doing with the wires, there's always a chance, even in stock cars, for things to short out. So I would suggest carrying a fire extinguisher with you because it's better to have than not have when you need it. From there, I ended up mounting the battery on the back of the cab here with just a simple battery box mount. And then I have what I call like just the rain protector, weather protector over the battery so it doesn't get just drenched on. And putting, just for race purposes, put in the kill switch here. And you got the jumper points. Continuing on with the kind of rock slider wide body here. This top part I ended up making out of fiberglass, and I basically used the same steps that I used for the front flares that I learned from Stealth Built. Basically just use a flat piece of cardboard, and then there's a little radius here. I actually used some leftover pieces from this middle section to kind of get that curvature. From there, we have the exhaust, which everyone loves. That was actually a backup plan from when I still had the stock bed on it. I was going to run the exhaust through the taillight buckets, but couldn't get the piping to look right, so we just went with that. It's kind of gotta stay, seeing everyone loves it. From there, we have what catches most people's attention first, and this is just a cheap carbon fiber eBay wing. I believe it's 61 inches wide. And then I put it on a custom made chassis mount, which I basically just use some plate aluminum, the same stuff I use for the M plates here, and just cut it out with the jigsaw. From there, I mounted my tail lights and reverse lights to it, and these are just from Morimoto. They're moped tail lights, and then just some white driving lights. So everything is DOT legal. And then I also put a third one down on the bottom there for my third brake lights. I guess finishing up with chassis mount, everyone always asks about the chains. The chains are functional. Seeing they're kind of in an X pattern, they kind of pull everything tight to the point that makes everything solid. And for the wheels, I went with Diamond Racing. One, because they're local here in Wisconsin, and two, it was an affordable way to get the crazy different offsets that I needed for this setup of Trash Panda. So the rears are 15 by 10 with 2-inch back spacing, and the fronts are 15 by 10 with 5-inch back spacing. As far as the tires go, they're a cheap brand off of Amazon. I went with them, one, because I feel the tread pattern looked kind of gave it that aggressive look, and it just fits with the whole Mad Max meets Cyberpunk vibe I was going with. Moving on to the suspension, we'll start at the back here. This is a pretty simple setup, even though it looks kind of complicated. But it's a 5-link from Thorbros. It's a semi-weld-in, semi-bolt-in setup that he's made. And what's nice is it utilizes a lot of stock mounting locations for stuff. So we'll start at the front. It utilizes the front leaf spring perch for your first trailing bar. It comes with a new gas tank cross member, which is also the front mounting point for your wishbone. So we have the front one up there, and then it has 2 pivot points on the actual diff, and those get mounted to this plate, which just basically mounts over your diff cover. So if you're just doing a 3-link, that's how that's kind of done. But the 5-link adds these trailing bars with the bags on them. And when you have the bags on the trailing arms, it gives a smoother ride compared to the bags over the axle, which would allow you to tow more and give kind of a stiffer ride. So besides the bolt-on stuff, the only stuff you would have to weld on are your brackets for your trailing arms and the brackets for the front arms. These 2 cross members can be bolted in. I chose to weld them in just because it was easier. I had the welder here already. For the rear, with the shocks, I went with QA1. I also have those up front. They're just single adjustment, so nothing crazy. But I want something a little bit better than just stock shocks, because I was aiming for this to still have pretty good handling, even though it looks like it's made more for the dirt. The only other thing on the back end here is I did swap out the 2-wheel drive axle, and I went with a 4-wheel drive Blazer axle, which gives me just about 4 inches wider, plus the disc brakes. So you don't have to worry about trying to piece together a conversion kit or something to get rid of those drum brakes on your 2-wheel drive. Seeing I wanted to go wider, this just kind of seemed like the best option for the rear end. So for the front end, a little more difficult here, but for the control arms, upper and lower, I went with a company called Ryanick Fabrications, and this is his Powerhouse Plus 6 drift setup for the S10. So basically, it extends the control arm about 3 inches each side, which gave me the extra width I needed. And then it's built out of some nice heavy duty DOM material. From there, I ended up converting it from the coilovers to bags. I then installed my shock mounts, which has the QA1s on the front as well. I also installed a bump stop to it. And then when we go to the other side, I'll kind of show you the other things I did there. But to put these arms in, it was basically pull out the stock ones or the ones that I had in previously, and these just bolted right in. They utilize all of the stock joints, so the ball joint, upper and lower, are stock. And like I said, the mounting points are all stock as well. And one nice thing about the uppers is it uses, kind of see here, don't mind the a little bit of wires here, but it utilizes the heavy duty Thorbros kind of crossbar for the bushing on the uppers, which just kind of gives it the extra strength and extra assurance that nothing is going to snap like some of those other kind of cheap Amazon control arms you find that are just kind of bolted together. The other thing on the front end that I had to do was the first attempt at tubbing the firewall. So I actually had to cut into the firewall and replate it with some sheet metal and then just did some seam sealer around it. Not the prettiest. It could have been done a little bit better, but for the first time, I don't think it was too bad. Keeps the water out, and it made more room for these big ass tires. So on the front side here, the only other thing I did to the control arms was I ended up putting a sway bar mount on each side to utilize the factory two-wheel drive sway bar. It's got some Heim joint links for it. Other than that, one, to help with the bump steer, and two, seeing we went wider up front, I pieced together my own bump steer kit. So basically it drops the pickup point for your steering knuckle lower, seeing with the new control arms and the bag set up, it changes the geometry of the steering. So this helps so you won't get bump steer. And then the tie rod tube or adjuster, I had to get this longer to obviously fit with the new track width up front. But all in all, I think it was probably about $100 to piece it all together from Speedway and a couple other places to get the Heim joints from. And on this side, you can kind of see the Thorbros, how heavy duty this crossbar is for the upper control arm. Nothing too crazy for under here. It's just the stock 4.3 for now. I do plan on doing a motor swap over the winter. Between a few different options right now, but I think we got one planned out. So we'll reveal that in future videos. But like I said, just stock 4.3. Only thing else done under here is had to move some things for the new bigger tires. Slide you over here. Okay, so the couple things that we had to move was all of the stuff that was up on this inner fender. So we had the ABS block that was here, deleted that, don't need that anymore. We had the relay box, which I moved right here, then made some mounts for it off of the frame. Fits pretty good. Really can't access it too well, but That's future me problems, right? Other than that, we had the windshield washer reservoir, which I haven't got to fit back in. Not really a necessity for me. On this side, we had a bunch more stuff. So we had the coolant reservoir, which I replaced with one from Evil Energies. It's got a more budget friendly option, and so far haven't had any issues. Works just great for me. Ended up moving the PCM to the firewall and did the best I could with all the extra wires to keep them out of the way. Other than that, then I just took the stock inner fenders, kind of beat them into place a little bit. Not the prettiest, but I plan on redoing those once we have this motor out for the motor swap. Other than that, like I stated before, we moved the battery from under the hood to the back of the cab to free up space under here. I think once we get this ugly V6 out of here and the new inline motor in, it's going to free up some more space and just kind of fit the vibe a little better for Trash Panda. Moving right along to maybe my favorite part of the build so far, the interior. So with the interior, I ended up taking pretty much everything stock out of the truck, and I ended up putting in a Nissan 240 S13 dash in with the console. And this thing slid right in. It was a 1/4 inch wider than stock. All I had to do was take about an inch, inch and a half of the stock dash, mold that into the S13 dash just to meet the windshield. Other than that, it slid right in. Went from about 60 to 70 nuts and bolts that the stock S10 is held in by, and this is being held in by 3. There's one in the center and then one on each side of the dash, and they do utilize stock S10 bolt locations. So it's almost like it was meant to be. I was able to get all of the stock trim to fit back in on the top and the bottom all the way around. As far as what's all in here and on the dash, I ended up mounting the airlift valve block for the 3P on the dashboard. And you have the controller right here. A little power switch under there. And I got all these switches that control various things. So I got the new cluster I put in, and these are all just glow shift tinted gauges. I use this touchscreen stereo, which I haven't had any issues with. It's kind of budget friendly. I think it was only $300 or $400. It's got all the bells and whistles to it, and right now I just use it as my speedometer, seeing I don't have speakers in yet. That's a future video coming up. Other than that, I ended up taking out the stock HVAC system, and I put in one of those universal 4-vent ones. I have that hooked up to one of the switches, and then we just got the speed control there. Other than that, we have the air tank for the air ride is underneath the center console here. Behind the passenger seat is where the compressor is. The seats themselves are just some old school APC racing seats. One of the things I get asked a lot about from the S10 guys is how I got the steering wheel on. And this is just NRG hub with the NRG quick release. And then, unfortunately, right now, just a cheap Amazon steering wheel. I do plan on upgrading to something better down the line. Other than that, we got the classic JDM 5-view rear view mirror, seeing I couldn't see nothing out the back with the big ass spoiler. For the door cards, I ended up just cutting the top part off of the stock door card, and then I utilized some ABS plastic for the bottom part, kind of give more of that race feel. I think that's about it on the interior. We do have a lot more planned for future videos in here. But other than that, I think that's about it for in here. All right, I think that's going to do it for the first video. I think I went over all of the big things that I've done to the truck so far. Moving forward, like I said, I think we'll just kind of follow along with my process on building Trash Panda here. Might do a little vlogging at like car shows or something, kind of feel that out. You guys kind of let me know also what you'd like to see. As always, you guys can ask more questions, leave comments like you guys do on Instagram. And then, of course, every video, like Instagram, will end with the cats. So this one will introduce you to all three of them that we have here at the house. And as always, you guys can send in your cats to be featured on Instagram or YouTube channel now. So I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.